welcome to the kitchen of the grumpy old chef. I've had a number of people ask me how I do my bagels, and I thought this would probably be the easiest way to show everyone. So well, these are our ingredients. We will need 19 grams of salt, about 66 grams of malt extract syrup. This is non-diastatic malt, which is important because diastatic malt will actually give the bagels a sticky crumb. So this is non-diastatic. You buy it in the supermarket. It's messy stuff to work with. And of course we need water. We will need 28 grams of yeast, or if you use it in the packets, it's about 4 of those little packets. And bread flour. This is high gluten flour. If you use all-purpose flour, you can still do it, but they won't have the same structure. So they work better with high gluten flour, and this is what professional bakers use to make bagels. Okay, so what we'll be doing is we'll be putting 19 grams of salt, the malt, and some water into this bowl. Into this container, I'll be putting yeast and water. Okay, and then we'll mix the salt, malt, and water together. We will end up adding the flour to this, and then we'll pour in the yeast mixture. Okay, so here we go. Now, as a professional baker, which I was, we do everything by weight measurement. We don't do cups and all that sort of thing. So what I do is I put this on the scale. This is a scale that does metric and American or imperial. I work in metrics, so if you have a scale like this, you can just switch it to work in metrics because grams are more precise. So I put this the bowl on here, and I turn on the scale. Right, and then we'll start with, what will we start with? 19 grams of salt. Okay, so we do that. Okay, 17, 18, okay, close enough. All right, and now we'll put in that sticky, yucky malt. Okay, so roughly about 66 grams. I'll reset the scale. Okay. Now I've also put some of this in the pot on the stove behind me, because this is what we use to boil the bagels in with water. Okay, and I like to put in a fairly good wax so that it looks like tea, because it gives a shiny crust to the bagel and it also gives a nice flavor to it. Okay, we have to put some water in here, so we've got 375 grams. I should explain about this too. I'm not a Satanist or anything. It's just I figured I needed an apron, and I opened the drawer and only had one in the house, and this is it. So, but it does kind of suit me anyway. So 375 grams of water. This is warm water. Okay, that's good. Okay, take that off of there. Now that's got to be stirred up. The malt is and it's very thick stuff, so it takes a bit to stir it up. Okay, that'll do for now. Okay, so in this container here, let's reset the scale again. Something like this. Okay, we've got 28 grams of yeast going in here. So I use this instead of the packets because I go through a fair amount of yeast. Okay, and then in here we're going to put some warm water. Now, it's got to be, as they say, warm enough, like a baby's bottle on the inside of your wrist and all that, because if it's too warm, it will kill the yeast. And if it's too cold, it won't help the yeast to grow and the dough to rise. Okay, so I've got about 150 grams of water going in here. I've reset the scale to 0 again. So we'll put in 150 grams of water. Okay, good. All right, we'll give that a bit of a mix. And then the next thing we'll do is we'll put about 1 kilo of bread flour into that bowl, and that'll go on the mixer. All right. Okay, so about 1 kilo of bread flour is going in here. Reset the scale again. Okay, 1 kilo, or about 1,000 grams. Yep. Okay, now, what we're going to do is just give a little bit of a stir by hand, like so. Okay, and then into this, we shall add our yeast mixture. So now we'll chuck this in here with this. Okay. A little bit of a mix up, like so. And then we'll chuck it onto the mixer and let it knead for a while, which develops the gluten strands in the dough and also causes friction so that the dough will rise properly. Whoops. Okay. Shouldn't put it any higher than first or second speed. I watch a lot of TV chefs who put it all the way up to high, and it makes me cringe every time because they're not geared that way. So when you're using a heavy dough, because bagel's heavier than pizza dough, bagel dough's heavier, you have to actually run at a lower speed. Unless you want to kill your mixer. You really don't like your mixer and you want to kill it. Okay, so we're going to let this go for a while. If it's a bit dry, you can always add a little bit more water to it. Now I like to make my bagels with onion and poppy seed, so a little while before I started, I put some chopped dried onion, which is just, again, stuff I got from Costco. This actually works better than using fresh onion. And so I put the dried onion into a bowl and added water to it and just let it sit for a while so that it rehydrates. When it's rehydrated enough, I'll add some poppy seed to it. I add them later so they don't take on the water as well. Yeah, that's looking quite nice. Yep. So we'll leave that to go for about 10 minutes or so. And we'll be back. Alright. That is quite good. So I think we'll take this dough out. That is just beautiful, okay? That's exactly how it's supposed to look. So what I'm going to do with this is, because I'm actually going to go on to make a second batch of bagels, it's better to do it 2 separate batches of a dozen for me, because logistically it's very hard. By the time you've finished processing the first dozen, if you do it in one big batch, the first dozen's up halfway risen, the second dozen, blah, blah, blah. It's just easier to do a dozen and then another dozen. So this bowl has been slightly oiled with cooking spray and wiped around. I'll cover that with wrap, and I'll leave that to sit for an hour, and we will return later. While we're waiting, we just get our spring onion or scallion cream cheese ready to go, which is very simple. Basically, all you're going to do is toss all of these cut up scallions into the food processor, whiz them for a few seconds, and then add the cream cheese and whiz them some more. Okay. We've got our cream cheese here, which has been sitting for a little bit to try to soften it up. Will do. Okay, our dough is risen. Okay, you put your finger in there, it just sort of stays dented, so you know it's done. Alright, so What we want to do is we want to, I'll move it over here, what we want to do is we want to squeeze it down. Okay, no need to punch it, you don't have to be that dramatic unless you're feeling very frustrated. So that's it, just basically squeeze the carbon dioxide out of it. Still feels kind of gassy. Now, to make this up into bagels, what you can do is you could just cut this in half, cut it in half again, so you already got quarters, and cut each quarter into thirds. Basically, I'm pedantic, so I tend to roll and shape each one, and I scale each piece. So, but you don't have to do that. That's just me being me. Okay, so I usually do roughly about 130 grams of dough for a bagel. So again, you do not have to do this. All right, so that'll do for one. So what I do is just make them into little circles like so, and then I'll round them up as well. So I fold it under and just sort of tuck it in. Okay. Fold it under so that you have this, like a seam, the thing on the bottom. And so that from outward appearances, the ball is nice and smooth, except a little puckered bit on the bottom. Okay, then I take each piece of dough and I round it up. I round it up like so. See, with my hands sort of open like this, like that. Okay, then I'm going to take each piece of dough and I'm going to chuck it in there and relax for 10 minutes. I put it in my little thing there because it keeps it a bit crusty. However you choose to divide the dough, whether you do it scaling or whether you do it by just cutting it up into individual pieces, you still should round it up in some way. Okay. Okay, I started with this end, so that'll be the end that gets shaped with grains first. I'm going to let them sit for about 10 minutes or so and relax so that they're easier to shape. Meanwhile, as long as I've got my bowl of onions here, I might as well put the poppy seeds into it. And I should turn the stove up underneath my malt water, which has been simmering for some time. So that's the water with the extra malt in it that we boil the bagels in. Love poppy seeds. Love onion, can't be bothered doing both separate, so I just toss it all in together. Of course, you can put whatever you want on your bagels. You can put garlic, you can put sesame, some coarse salt, or nothing. You can just have them plain. Okay, this is just how I do it, a mixture of onion and poppy seeds. So what I do is when I boil the bagels, I'll take it out with a slotted spoon, with a slotted skimmer, and let the water drain off of it. Then I'll slide it into this bowl and let it pick up the onion and poppy, and then I'll flip it over, and usually end up sprinkling more on anyway. Okay. That's where we'll be using it. And we've got a few minutes to wait. Okay, well, I think these have sat long enough, so we should start being able to turn them into bagels. So I'll get this little pan ready here, and we can start with this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this piece of dough here, I'm going to stick my thumb through it, just like that, right? Then I'm going to go like that. Okay, now, people who make bagels in bagel shops will probably have a heart attack, but oh well. I'm trying to make it the easiest way possible for people, so I'll just put them in there like that. And just sort of even them out. Lucky last. If you want to be really authentic, what you can do is just keep the big pressed dough whole and roll it out into big snakes, roll it around your hand, and snap it off and do that. I just thought this was easier for people who haven't done bagels before. Okay, and we cover these up and give them half proof, which will probably be about 20 minutes or thereabouts. You just look at them and you can see when they're rising enough that they're ready to go. I know I just touched my hair and I'll be washing my hands, so in case anybody wants to make a comment about that. Alright, so we'll be back in a few minutes when these have risen. Okay, these are coming along very nicely. I think we can start turning them into bagels. So we'll those over by the stove. Now the oven's on because it's not much good making bagels if the oven's not on. So the oven's been preheating to about 410 degrees Fahrenheit, I guess. About 210 degrees Celsius I've got it on. So whatever that comes out to in Fahrenheit, that's what the oven's on. Okay, so I'll just take this lid off here. We've got our malt water, which is working very nicely, boiling away. So what we're going to do, I'm going to drop these one at a time. I drop them in good side, which is the top, first, and then I flip them over to the other side, and then I flip them over before I take them out so that I can drop the good side straight into there. Okay, so if this makes sense. All right, so carefully remove these and drop them in. Turn the heat up a little bit. Sticking hold. As I said before, this molded water is about the color of a nice cup of tea. So drop those in. I usually fit 3 at a time in these pans. If I can move them out, it will be easier to see. Yeah, it might be a little bit easier. First turn. Some people try to do this in little frying pans. I don't know how they do it. I don't know why they do it, but this is the way I do it. Okay, so I don't know, however many seconds on each side. Make it a little brighter in here. Getting dark. It just goes to show it's a process that takes time to do. Okay, now there's that one. Take the first one out. Drop it into this, like so. Okay. Flip it on here. Okay, flip that one over, flip that one over. Take that one out. Just takes a little coordination at this stage. Okay. And there's the first 6 ready to go in the oven. Okay, first mix in. Mix. Second one in. And leave it in there to cook for about, I don't know, 15 minutes or so. And in about 15 minutes we should have delicious, beautiful bagels. I'm doing a family tree right now, and you never know, there might be some Jewish in it. I don't think so, but you never know. Okay, let those cool off. Beautiful. Okay, I've cleaned up a little bit. That's one thing about bagels. There's a lot of time waiting for things to happen, so you can clean up your bowls and pans and things, so there's almost no mess at the end. My second dozen is in the oven right now, so that means I get to try one of the first dozen because they've cooled off enough. So I'll take one and cut it open. I usually like to be considerate to the people who are going to be eating these bagels, and I usually slice them about 7/8 of the way through before I freeze them. Just want to get it evenly on there, just like so. Okay. And I slice it in half. And take a bite. Oh, these are nice and chewy. Just the way a bagel's supposed to be. So I hope you'll have a try at making these bagels. They're not hard at all to do. It just requires timing and coordination. For me, especially today, because I'm doing 2 batches. So anyway, I hope you'll have a try. And if you have any questions about anything, you can send me a message via YouTube, and I'll be happy to answer it. Okay? Thanks for watching. Bye now.